So the new season is going to come back soon enough for Intercounty to start in May. For the rest of us club players who are mad to get back and play, and I mean, the science is in a long time ago at this stage. Outdoor activities are safe, and even NEFIT has now accepted it at this point. But like trying to keep yourself motivated to come back and be ready for a new season, which could be landed on you pretty quickly without too much warning. I'm joined by Michael Verney of the Irish Independent. Michael, do you find it hard to stay motivated? I mean, you're looking forward to a new season with Burr. Haven't yet met your new manager, Brendan Bugler, in person. Eddie Brennan's the new manager in Coola. The team hasn't met him in person yet either. So it's a strange time.
First things first, Shane. It's good to be back.
We're
Our
not
game
back.
season is back.
Our game season is back for sure, yeah, and a bit of an upgrade as well. I'm sure people will have noticed. But do you have any issues staying motivated? I think you've always been fairly self motivated in terms of keeping right and all that kind of stuff. But are you finding it trying?
Yeah, it's not simple. It's very, very difficult at different stages. Particularly, I would have thought in January and February. At least now the evenings are a bit longer. The weather is a bit nicer. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. We still don't know exactly when we're going to be back or anything like that. But at least there's a sign of life that you will hopefully be back on the pitch training in May. And I think a kind of a default kind of a thing clicks in when you know when you're going to be back. You've probably been tipping away, but it gets a bit more concentrated. It gets a bit more focused. But I think I'd be speaking for everyone when I say, like, I had, there was a couple of weeks there when you're just like, oh jeez, my body's a bit sore and this and that, and you're kind of lacking motivation, and you're finished work and it's dark, and it's harder to go and do things. And I'm sure everybody would kind of resonate with that. Only the elite of the elite are able to stay motivated for 12 months of the year. And I definitely would have had times there when you're just maybe not motivated to do that much, but you try to keep tipping away. But just even I'm looking out here now and you can see the sun shining, and you get the smell of fresh cut grass of being back, and the idea of being back on a pitch. It does seem like it's not a million miles away. So it's far more easy to be motivated now than it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago when it was dark and there was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was only darkness, but there's a bit of light coming now.
Yeah, you'd even think though, for public health advice should be get people out training, because number one, it's a respiratory disease, so you think that would actually be good for people to be fit when combating that. Number one, increase the lung capacity, or work on that, just getting out there. And number two, if you were telling people not to be outdoors, you're basically going to drive them indoors in sort of clandestine settings where the thing does transmit far more easily. So why aren't we being told let teams train? Because there was this insane situation where the HSC, Colin Henry, he was talking about, but dressing rooms dressing rooms have been closed for 13 months and they're not going to be open. So can we please stop with the nonsense? I mean, we can all we can all sort of tell when we're being sold a pup here. Just let us back training. Like, yes, elite should be back training. Yes, kids should be back training. But you're going to have situations now where adult GAA players are coaching kids, but they're not allowed to play themselves. And then when you say, well, look, it's 18.7 times less likely that you're going to transmit outdoors, which we all knew from early enough last year. Why on earth are we not? And people will say, okay, there was huge spikes in January. Okay, that's okay. When the spikes are absolutely massive, we understand things have to be closed down. But that doesn't mean everything has to be closed down, because as the rest of the world realises, and it seems to be common knowledge across the rest of the world, allow outdoor stuff to happen. Don't just close everything down. And also, at what cost? And also, where's your proof that stopping outdoor activities led to any cases?
Yeah, how envious would you be looking at, 50,000 people at an AFL game over in Australia, or, 20,000 people at an indoor boxing event or whatever over Australia and New Zealand?
Baseball in Texas,
Uh,
they're all like 40,000 left.
yeah, it's nuts. Like, and just the thing about the dressing rooms, you have some health experts just throwing out things like that. They obviously don't have any clear knowledge of exactly what they're talking about with regards to a sporting field, and they're just throwing out generalizations that haven't existed since the pandemic hit. There have been no use of dressing rooms or anything like that. Teams have been getting been coming togged out, probably individually in their cars. They've been getting halftime talks and quarter break talks out on the pitch or in the stand. All the team talks have been done in the stand or outside. So like any of that kind of talk is just nonsense really, and they just don't have an intimate knowledge of what has actually been going on in these sports and just how safe things have been. Like last year when we were training with Bird, the main entrance to the pitch wasn't opened. We all parked. There's a Tesco car park right to the north end of the grounds. We park in there, come in through a side gate. You know, there was no congregations at all. We got tugged out in the stands as the same. I'm sure he did in Coola, getting tugged out on the sideline, or just doing little bits and pieces on the sideline. There was no contact with anyone. Everybody left by themselves when they were supposed to. Everybody sanitized coming in and sanitized coming out. We went above and beyond, and even with the return to play protocols, filling out questionnaire every night before you went training, or every day before you played a match. Like, it was so unbelievably safe, and it just there's absolutely no reason why we can't be back training. It's so important just to keep people sane. You keep telling people to stay inside, people will go mad inside eventually. Just even, it's great to see more people out walking and things like that. So you see the amount of people that are in parks, you see the amount of people that are out on the roads. There's absolutely no reason why teams can't be training smartly as they were last year during the pandemic when they were allowed to do so. There's absolutely no reason why they couldn't be doing that at the moment. None whatsoever.
It feels so crazy to say, let's justify safe outdoor activities. Everyone understands the indoor is the issue, and that if people congregate indoors after sports, but so that would be discouraged. And I think everyone would be responsible enough to know that. We had those scenes where there was mass celebrations after some championships last year, and that shouldn't happen, and it shouldn't happen again. But even if we have a situation where you and I were allowed back club training now, and everyone else, and I mean all sports here, by the way, all outdoor sports, it's not as if there's going to be any cups or celebrations in the next few months. I mean, club championships aren't going to happen until well later in the year, at which stage millions of vaccines will be administered around the country. And I think there'll be people will probably be self-policing a little bit more in terms of these indoor settings. But maybe even at that point anyway, it'll be okay. But there'll be no club championship handed out in the next few weeks. Now, maybe there's a couple of unfinished club championships that happened for last year. Maybe you have to look at those and figure out how best to get through that. But that sort of stuff, like anyone who's saying you shouldn't have outdoor activities, do you therefore want people to meet up indoors? Because that's what's going to happen. Like, I mean, in March, the Sunday Times reported that in 12 months of detailed tracing of positive COVID tests in professional soccer, American football, rugby league, rugby union, there hasn't been a single case of on-field transmission. Not a single case. And it doesn't matter whether I'm getting paid 500 grand a week or I'm getting nothing, or I'm even paying a tenner so I can play Astro soccer. If I go out on the field, the bodies work the same. So it's either going to transmit or it's not. And if it hasn't happened in 12 months of research on that, it's just not going to happen. And then you see situations where NEFIT, a week and a half ago, I think it was April the 7th, they put out their modelling, which suggested that after 12 months of COVID and 3 waves, there was 236,000 cases. They suggested that over the next 5 months, so less than half the time, cases would more than double. And that was despite millions of vaccines being administered, and despite it being in the middle of summer when this thing seems to transmit far less, because people are outdoors as well. And I think people are probably feeling better or more, I don't know, active and whatever it might be because it's summery weather. So to me, like, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And this shouldn't happen weeks from now. I contacted one politician and I said to him, this is an open goal, push for this now, people want it, you'll get a win and you'll probably do a lot for your party here. And coming weeks is what I was told. I just find it very frustrating that there's nobody actually standing up and saying it. Because, like, who's representing your viewpoints? If you want to see things opened up in a safe way, safe activities, who's actually out there representing you?
No, there's nobody, Shane, really, to be honest with you. You kind of feel a bit lost at the moment. You don't feel represented at all, really, by anybody, because there doesn't seem to be anybody in tune with, particularly not just GA, but any sporting teams that want to just get back doing a bit. Like, whatever about playing games. Like, yeah, I'd love to play a game in the morning. I'd love to go back and just train for 5 or 6 weeks, to be honest with you. And most people don't like to just go back and train with the idea of no games. But it's just that bit of freedom that people need. And as you say, no, there's not going to be any county finals played over the next, couple of months. It's going to be very safe. It's going to be people landing to the field. It's going to be people leaving the field. But there'll be a serious amount of endorphins released on the pitch. You will leave so much happier. I think it was Ryan McCluskey that used to play for Fermanagh. Saw a tweet he had up yesterday. He said it's hard to actually describe the energy, he said, that he got from taking a session. I think it was on Tuesday night, and he's only a coach now. And he said it will actually stay with him for an awful long time. Just the energy, the positivity, the enthusiasm that he got from the players, and that the players got from him. And there's so much to be got from that for people now. There's just, I think it's an absolute no brainer. I actually don't see what the negatives are, particularly as you say. There's no county finals. There's no dangers. There's no dangers really of like anything potentially flaring up or anything like that. And if on the very, very, very off chance that there was a club that they had a couple of cases or something like that, it's just a matter of shutting down that club for a week or 2 weeks, and then moving on again. There's not going to be playing teams. It's not going to be transmitting to other clubs or other counties or anything like that really. So yeah, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Just something I would like to get your own kind of feelings on was just when the club is actually coming back. So last year we had most of the summer for the club, which I thought was absolutely unbelievable, and the inter-county was played off over the winter. So the inter-county players finished up just before Christmas if they're in an All-Ireland final. They're getting first dibs now, so they're coming back. They're coming back on the 19th. Whereas club players, a lot of club championships, you're probably looking at August, September before they come back. Like, what are your own thoughts on that? The club, I suppose, been left towards the tail end of the season. You would imagine in a couple of months that we would be at the levels where club games would be back to be played again. It would be my preference if maybe the league was a good bit shorter for hurling and football, and there was more time given to the club, or county action would finish a good bit earlier. I think we're kind of getting a raw deal to some respects. It's just when the club is going to be starting, and clubs are going to have to dish out a lot of money for floodlit facilities going into September and October. And people will say they always had to do that. That still doesn't make it right. I still think the county season could have been a bit shorter to give clubs a bit of grace, particularly on a financial outlet that they will not be able to afford, because they just don't have the same kind of revenue streams that they would have had in previous years.
It's a very fair point about the likes of the floodlights. That is a big concern.
How many clubs have them, Shane? Do you know what I mean? How many clubs actually have access to them?
Yeah,
and if you're
this is something you see in the club championship when it gets to Leinster and All-Ireland, provincial and All-Ireland series over the years, that teams had to travel around to other clubs. Can we use your facilities because we don't have floodlit pitches? Well, I suppose you're still into October and you're still going to have okay weather and decent light in the evening. It'll be at that point that it is starting to fade. So a lot of teams will probably be knocked out of their championships. I am trying to think real world situation this year only. I'd imagine that the insanity will stop next year and that you will have sports and outdoor activities no longer banned, because we're going to legalise safe outdoor activities again. So maybe just for this year only, I kind of somewhat accept it. Like, as a club player, if I can go back and play league games. Now, I don't know if you take league as seriously in Offaly, and like some counties don't take the league seriously at all. But as a club player, if I can play league even for a couple of months while the inter-county is going on, yeah, maybe it'd be okay if it's a little bit shorter, but I probably won't go too hard on it. But if I can play league games and then build myself up and be ready for a championship, I don't feel too badly about it. Where do you fit in there?
No, I do think clubs are going to need to be used. More clubs are going to need to be using floodlit facilities, just for the nature of when things start. Say your county gets to an All-Ireland final in early August, your championship won't really be kicking off until the end of August, early September. So you're going to have a lot of teams going into September, October. You're going to have a lot of guys coming back from different places. You're going to have to train probably later in the evening. There's going to be very little light. There'll be a huge clamour for floodlit facilities. You're going to have, God, what does it cost for a floodlit facility? 150 to €200 for a session. Chances are most clubs won't have them. They're going to have to go and dish out that kind of money that they don't have really, from a lack of gate receipts last year, maybe from a lack of a club lotto stopping for 6 months at different stages, or a year for other clubs as well. So I just think counties would have been far more capable of dealing with that. Obviously, number one, you have a lot less teams because it's just the county team, whereas when you're going to club championships, like if you're talking about, you know, senior teams in Tipperary, you're talking about an awful lot. If you're talking about, you know, you're talking about 10 in Offaly. So you have a lot of, I think it's a lot more burden spread out over a lot more clubs. That's just one of my worries about it. I know we all kind of were pushing for the split season. This I know it's very unusual and unprecedented times, but this is probably not what I expected from a fairness point of view for the club season. I just would have the league would have been much shorter in my view. It would not have been definitely would not have been 5 rounds of league. It would have been maybe 2 to 3. I'm not sure, or merge league and championship or something like that. But I just think clubs deserve to be back earlier than they will be back.
And if anyone out there has any thoughts how they'd like to see it run, or if there's anything we've said that you think is right, wrong, or anywhere in between, please do let us know.